That's not him. That's not him. Maria.
Come on, figure it out.
Oh, she figured it out. Oh my God.
Oh no.
Kobe.
And Soren's already dead. We don't
Yeah.
have any other outs.
Yeah.
Don't shoot her again.
There's your real
Imagine
Fury.
watching you kill someone.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's Sam Jackson and Hugh Jackman have experienced
Did you
this.
see that
That's
face?
it.
That's my favorite one.
That smile.
It's his evil side.
This guy,
I like him.
he's so good. I hate him.
Oh no. That's how she dies, thinking that it was him.
I told you she had to figure it out.
Do you think she figured it out?
I think she did. I think she said it was you as kind of like a warning.
Okay.
To go find you in the crowd. I mean, you're dying. Those are your last thoughts.
Well, I mean, her previous last words were like, "You've lost your touch." So
Yeah.
that's not a good way to go.
Oh my gosh.
Look, what kind of final image is this? Oh my God!
R.I.P. Maria Hill.
R.I.P. Maria Hill.
Been in the MCU since forever.
They
Since
did it dirty
2012.
with that, I think. They did it so dirty.
That's
Or Kobe was like, "Thank you. I don't have to do Marvel movies anymore.
Yeah,
I
I
will
want
be
out."
relieved from my." Oh my
I will only
God.
sign on if there is a bullet in my gut by the end.
Oh my God, guys! I can't believe they ended the first episode this way. This is a gut punch. Welcome back to New Rockstars. Secret Invasion episode 1 kicked off with a bang, then a bang, then a bang, then bang, bang, bang. A lot of big bangs. We say dos vidania to a long-time MCU character, Maria Hill. If episode 1 can kill off someone who's been with us since 2012 in the MCU, who else will die on this show? It's back on, and I need you guys to help me with this. We're all gonna whisper it together.
Okay.
Skrulls search. This is Inside Marvel. It's New Rockstars Marvel Reaction Show. We have changed things up here on Inside Marvel so that we are now in person. We got our West Coast Avengers here with us. I'm Erik Voss. Here with me is Hector Navarro and Maude Garrett.
What's up? Hi.
Hello.
Ooh, hey, what is this?
Let me have him.
Okay.
I'm in America.
I'm so excited to have both of you here with us on
Yeah.
New Rockstars. For those of you who might have joined New Rockstars in the past year or so, Maude used to join us for our Westeros Weekly, our Game of Thrones after shows back a couple years ago.
Broke Theory?
And Broke Theory.
Wow.
We used to do a show called New Rockstars News and the Debrief, and Maude was a big part of that, so it's so wonderful having you back. Welcome.
Lovely to be back. Yay.
Mod's the best.
And then Hector, you might know Hector from our WikiLeaks this past season and a lot of other New Rockstars formats. And you guys have done stuff together in the past,
Absolutely.
right?
Sure have over the years.
And Mod, you're going to be happy to know this. I watched the entire first season of Game of Thrones House of the Dragon.
You did.
Yeah.
Hey, what'd you think?
Secret Invasion's great, and
Yep.
I can't wait to talk about it.
Yep.
Wow. There's not as much incest and
Yeah,
and
so far,
child
so far.
mutilation.
It's only episode
right,
1.
Right.
We don't
A lot
know.
of scrolls are happening
season's
real
young.
fast.
Yeah. A lot of scrolls. A lot of scroll stuff going to be happening. Yes. Right.
Well, I'm so pumped to be chatting with both of you for a number of reasons that you'll see throughout this this after show. We're going to be bringing our kind of personal takes to what we see every Wednesday whenever you watch this. And a reminder that Inside Marvel is actually now going to be shifting over to the Break Room channel on the New Rockstars Network. For Secret Invasion Episode 1, we're also releasing this after show on the main channel. So you could be watching it there right now. But if you are watching this on the main channel, be sure to go over to the Break Room because we're going to have an extended version of this after show. A couple questions that are not in the main channel version of it.
Oh, bonus.
A bonus Skrull Search exclusive. And starting next week, this will be only on the Break Room. So be sure to subscribe to the Break Room. You can also check out Tommy and Jay Washington's reaction to episode 1 that's already on the channel. Or no, they stayed up late. They were the late night folks. And my breakdown, the Easter egg breakdown, is going to be on the main channel later today. And be sure to check out nerdriot.shop where you can always grab the latest and greatest in New Rockstars gear. Right now, you can check out our line of merch inspired by Secret Invasion. Support the channel and check out our great merch options over at nerdriot.shop. And yeah, again, please subscribe to all 3 of our channels, The Deep Dive, The Break Room, and New Rockstars.
The slogan needs to be wear it if you want to fit in.
I like that.
If you want to fit in, that's good.
I like that. Okay, let's talk about what happened in episode 1.
Okay.
We're just going to recap it. We're going to relive it. We're going to re-traumatize ourselves.
Good.
We start with Agent Everett Ross coming back. He meets up with Agent Prescott, who is played by the same actor who does Beric Dondarrion on Game of Thrones,
Yes.
the Lightning Lord.
Yeah.
What a
did not
fun
know
way
that.
to begin.
Yeah.
He's gone full Pepe Sylvia with this theory that Skrulls are behind a series of attacks around the globe. He seems paranoid, and he's trying to prevent Ross from leaving, but Ross escapes. They have a fight, and then this Prescott gets shot through. It took me a second to realize where the gunshot came.
Because it was
right,
the blood leak.
Yeah.
We love
it was a
that.
blood leak, right? So he had the gun in his ankle holster, right? And
Right.
then he just I think they're just careful showing where gunshots happen so early in an episode on Disney Plus. Maybe might be.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
He calls Maria Hill for an extraction. He's pursued in the streets by some mysterious figure. Ross jumps off a roof. Feels very Men in Black opening to me. There's like a couple Men in Black references.
Yeah.
I feel like in this beginning.
Yes, especially with the little girl.
Little girl.
Oh, yes.
Did you guys think
Quantum
of that?
physics?
Yeah.
Shit, that's way,
She's
she's
up
way
to
too
no
young for
good.
that. Yeah. So Maria Hill pulls around just to see him badly wounded, and the figure stands over him. And while Maria has her gun aimed on him, he shapeshifts, and it's Talos. Everett Ross passes away, but he also shapeshifts. He was a Skrull, and Talos says he's one of them.
So now it's an us versus them.
Yeah.
But it's like, who's the us and who's the
Right, and Talos is also a Skrull, but
Yeah.
the show is already establishing, like, look, we're going to give you new Skrulls that you were not familiar with. Because up to this point, what have Skrulls been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? The movie Captain Marvel? Mm-hmm. And I think that's it. And then just Talos and his wife at the end of Spider-Man, Far From Home.
Yeah,
That's
there was
right.
the one in WandaVision who showed up recruiting
That's
Monica
right.
Rambeau.
Monica Rambeau being
yeah.
like, we're working up in space. You're like, okay, I guess she's going to go up to the Saber Station, and then we'll see that in the Marvels movie later this year. But that's been it. And when Captain Marvel, the movie, came out in 2019, and it was set in 1995, I remember the internet and comic book fans talking about, typically Skrulls are just bad guys
Right.
in Marvel Comics. And this movie makes you think they're bad guys, and they're kind of bad guys for a good portion of it. And then there's a twist where it's like, oh no, they're refugees, and Fury and Carol Danvers and Maria Rambeau, they're all going to help these Skrulls. The real villains are Jude Law and the Kree. And so comic book fans are going, this is like an inversion of the typical thing. And this show, I think, is trying to establish, okay, yes, there are good guy Skrulls. We've humanized some of those characters, Talos and his wife and so on. But we're still going to have a villainous side to these characters.
And it's also another extension on the aftermath of the blip.
Yeah.
You know, this blip happened and it was catastrophic and it was for years. So what actually happened in this time, and we're looking at the aftermath of it all. And I think not only are we seeing sort of like the demise of some characters who went through some stuff, but we're also seeing that, life didn't stop for a lot of other people, especially those, the Skrulls that are refugees in survival mode.
It's true. We went over that in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That show was also about human beings that were like displaced from the blip. And I love anytime anything in the MCU deals with what happened in those 5 years. Well, I'm like, I want more of
Except in
that.
Spider-Man, where it was like, well, here's the school report.
I know,
That
I
happened.
know.
A tuba player got tackled at a basketball game, which I think that I love what I call blip fiction, just focusing on these little moments where characters are absent and they come back, and then the chaos that ensues.
Yeah, like when Yelena came back in the show Hawkeye flashback.
yeah,
that was
the
awesome. She's
bathroom
just in a
shit around her.
bathroom. She comes back and she's like, "Where's my sister? I have to find my sister." And you're like, "No, girl, she dead."
I've been in bathrooms where the wallpaper shifted, but it's because I was on different drugs, I just had ate something really weird, and I was like, "That's what the wallpaper is." I was blacked out when I
You
came
were
in
like,
here.
"Did I just blip? Did that just snap?"
How long has it been in here? But I think this show does a better job with that kind of that blip aftermath. And they had a difficult task, as you mentioned. Captain Marvel painted the Skrulls all as good guys. So just with this one line, he's one of them. A Skrull saying that already signals to us that there's a different category of Skrulls who are nefarious, who are enemies, and we got to look out for them.
And it could be anyone.
Could be anyone.
Yeah.
Even Martin Freeman.
Even Martin Freeman.
I know.
So Nick Fury, definitely feeling his age, reunites on Earth with Maria Hill and with Talos, and Talos tries to ask Fury how he's doing.
Yeah.
Fury's all business.
Yeah.
We learn about Gravik, who's, I love the name,
Gravik.
Gravik? I'm going to call him Gravik because I'm a Dickensian appreciator, and I love it when they have wordplay in characters' names.
As a spokeswoman for the aliens, I mean, aka the Commonwealth, Gravik, they all sound like this, or they're Australian. So
Yeah, that's
I
true.
veto, actually.
Okay, fair
Mendo.
enough.
Ben Mendelsohn. Mendo.
Mendo, who chucked a mate in there.
Yeah, he did.
So happy about that.
I
Oh,
love
listen, mate.
Yeah.
Mate. I was like, Skrulls.
I love it.
Sorry.
So Gravik is the newest member of what's called the Skrull Council, and he's using this group called Americans Against Russia, the AAR, which I feel like aren't all Americans against Russia right now?
And it's so close to home as well. It's
What
like
the timing?
We're trying exactly.
Yeah.
I wonder if they pushed it back a little bit, like when
Maybe.
they were in the throes of war.
Possibly.
In real life.
Oh, I'm trying to remember too. If anybody here knows, I know that most Marvel projects always get announced and then they're usually delayed for various reasons. Obviously, the global pandemic was one reason a bunch of stuff got delayed. But then other people have been pointing out, like, well, with the incoming writer's strike and then maybe actor's strike and director's strike or whatever, that Marvel and other companies have been kind of banking a bunch of their stuff and slowly spacing it. Because remember, originally this year was going to be like a bunch of TV shows.
Yeah.
And then it's whittled down to like, well, we're getting Secret Invasion, Loki season 2, and then Echo.
Echo's going to drop all at once at the end of the year.
All at once at the end of the year. And people are like, well, where's What If season 2? And where, like, there's a couple of things that have sort of like, maybe they're holding on. So I don't know if, but then it could have also been real world events that have caused Marvel Studios to be like, let's sit on Secret Invasion for a second.
For a second, but
yeah.
also, like, I'd love to be a fly on the wall at that board meeting where they're like, wow, they're really making themselves a better villain for our story.
Right.
I mean, Russians since the Cold War have always been an easy villain because, you know.
Duh.
Yes.
But to your point, Maude, I think it's always been fascinating to know that, like, you know that there was maybe a meeting at Marvel in the year 2020 where they were like, man, we made a movie where everyone just had to, like, collectively mourn around the world for years, and now this global event has happened. Like, things weirdly line up to what Marvel...
Have you heard the other one? I have to get this out. It's so good. That there's a conspiracy. Now, don't go too far down this rabbit hole, but it's a little entertaining.
It's the show to do it in. It's the show to do it in.
Entertaining that the whistleblower for the UPIs, the new word for UFOs. UAP. Unidentified aerial phenomenons.
That's right.
And that the Marvel is essentially integrating the notions of multiverse and aliens being on the planet to actually help humans come into terms with the fact that it's already happening.
Love that conspiracy. I love that.
That's
Marvel
great.
we trust.
Remember when conspiracy theories could just be harmless and fun?
Yeah.
And
The aliens are
That
among
kind of.
us.
Yeah.
So you're saying the U.S. government's calling up Disney, Marvel Studios, and going like, "Can you put more aliens and stuff so people don't freak out?"
When we actually have to let them know that half this stuff's actually true.
And they're looking at their comic books and they're like, "Yeah, sure, that stuff's already been in there since the '60s, but okay, yeah, we'll put more."
Why?
I mean, Marvel Comics began as propaganda with Captain America to sell war bonds in World War II.
Oh man,
It's in its DNA to spread this.
Chariot of the Gods.
Anyway, so
take that with a lot of grain.
yes, that's now canon. So the AAR is actually a Skrull-led front, as are all these international terrorist cell groups that Prescott was talking about. Their goal is to start a war between Russia and the United States. It feels very Tom Clancy, right? The sum of all fears. This would likely spell the end of human civilization. Obviously, the U.S. and Russia have the biggest stockpile of nukes.
Right.
In disbelief, Fury decides to go for a walk alone, and we get an appearance from Colonel James Rhodes, a.k.a. Rhodey, who was told by President Ritson, Dermot Mulroney, or Dylan McDermott, who knows which one it is. Yeah, I love that they cast a guy who, like, there was an SNL bit and no one could tell them apart. So President Ritson tells Rhodey to deal with Fury and Hill's AWOL status. Fury's lonesome night walk ends with being kidnapped, and I think he expected to be kidnapped, honestly, and coming to this fancy room with Olivia Colman's character, Sonia Fallsworth, excuse me.
I have to make it very, very clear that Marvel is so lucky to get Olivia Colman.
Absolutely
That
lucky.
is such a win for the MCU.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think also, correct me if I'm wrong too, wasn't she also very excited to do it because she likes Marvel movies and stuff? Or
I think she mentioned that.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that she was just like down to clown because she's very much into this stuff, which is great.
She's fitting in perfectly, playing this MI6 character. Everything she's. I mean, this cast might be the most stacked cast any Disney Plus Marvel show has had.
It's good.
I don't think there's a weak link. So Sonya wants to talk Gravik. Fury wants to talk bomb supplies. Neither really budge. Fury eventually leaves, but not after Sonya tells him he's not ready for the fight. And Fury bugs her room. I love putting this little contact lens on the owl. We meet Emilia Clarke's character, Gaia, and she welcomes a new member to New Skrullos, Skrull refugee camp set up in an abandoned nuclear plant south of Moscow.
Moscow, if you're not American.
Moscow.
But if you're an American against Russia, you say it however you
Moscow. You say, hell yeah, we're going to Moscow.
Moscow. So they pass a mix of human and Skrull faces. Gaia explains that those who sign up as warriors have to stay in their human form. They're shells, so it's harder for them to be identified by humans and Skrulls. And I'm sure the makeup department's like, I wanted to,
No, are you kidding me? They're like, budget.
Yeah. Can there
Stay in
be
human
some
form.
actors that are humans all the time?
Yes.
They're all practical, yeah.
Yeah.
All practical.
And I think this is a really interesting thing because in Marvel Comics, Skrulls are the shape-shifting aliens, but for a long time, characters like Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four or people like Tony Stark or Bruce Banner, they're smart enough to know when a human is a Skrull. So when they did the Secret Invasion comic book storyline, one of the big revelations was not just Skrulls have been infiltrating and taking over a couple of different key characters, but it's also like, oh, we can no longer tell. Our technology doesn't work on how to determine who's a Skrull that's being disguised as a human anymore. So I think this is a way to sort of try to explain, okay, if Skrulls have been on Earth since 1995 in the MCU, if characters like Nick Fury and other top members of things like S.H.I.E.L.D. or the U.S. government or whatever are aware of them, there's got to be a technology way to figure, So now she's saying if Skrulls stay in their human form for longer, it makes it more difficult to be identified.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was like writing down like how do we do that? Because that is like
right. I'm sure it'll be
horror
answered.
Element,
I'm sure it'll
like
be answered. Yes.
Body snatching, where you're just like, I don't know how to differentiate, and it's like the only real telltale sign is strength.
Yeah.
Yes. Or
they out themselves if they're careless.
In the comic books, it's about if a character who you think is a Skrull gets killed, and then when they die, if the body reverts to Skrull form. That's really the only telltale way.
Shoot first and ask questions later, basically.
It's very counterproductive.
So yeah, we learned that the ones who are not warriors just have to stay at home, right? And then Gaia leaves Beto behind, and she enters a room where Pagon, Gravik's right-hand man, officiates the Skrull, taking an oath of loyalty to the cause. The room is lined with unconscious humans attached to devices, which we later learn are called fracking pods. I love the name of this.
Not to be confused with Battlestar Galactica, where fracking is a term of endearment.
Right. Or to be confused with the process of fracking.
I think it's both our influences there. And at Battlestar Galactica, who's a Cylon? The same kind of mystery, right? It's like the whole time it's going to be a mystery, and
with political intrigue laced throughout.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So once the Skrull completes his oath, the human is brought in, and it's like I like that they have to look at them face to face. It's very unsettling, and likely one who believes in the AAR cause. So, we don't need to feel too bad about him. But the Skrull takes his physical identity. The human is thrown into the fracking device, where the Skrull then quote takes his mind, takes his memories.
I wouldn't mind now that you've mentioned Battlestar Galactica. Like I was straight away thinking, what are the limitations? And there's only like sort of 6 or 7 forms that they can take. So when you see that particular human, it's a Cylon. What are some of the limitations here? Because not only can they take form, they can take multiple different forms if they've just seen them. They can then extract their memories. I know. What are these limitations that we have? Because this is feeling, again, going back to sort of the parallels we have in the universe, in the Earth. Like COVID was very similar. You didn't know who had it. It was like spread like wildfire, and it was hard to contain. With 1 million Skrulls now on the planet, with no limitations.
I think their one limitation is their ideology, their diasporatic status, the fact that they feel like strangers in a strange land. And I think that makes them. It's not really vulnerability, and in some ways, Gravik is weaponizing it as a strength that they can use to rally to this cause of kicking out the humans or eradicating humans from the planet. But yeah, I think their rage, their anger, the loyalty, the unflinching loyalty that they have to each other is like the one thing that limits them. The fact that they don't have the privilege of just settling and assimilating.
I also think that
that's what makes them scarier.
Yeah. I agree.
And we're so used to in sci-fi stories like Battlestar Galactica, or there was the recent season of Star Trek Picard. The last season had changelings was also like a whole element in that storyline. And even if a Skrull can take a human being's memories, does that also mean personality? Does that also mean
I don't think Skrulls were born with an Australian accent.
So they're picking that up from somebody.
Yep.
Who are they picking? But I'm saying maybe there are limitations that the show hasn't showed us yet, where even if a Skrull takes a person's memory, could another person be able to identify an imposter with, if they somehow mess up? If they, what does it mean taking a person's memory? Are they completely covered in every single way, or are there going to be gaps in that memory? Or
is it only conducive to the body that they're in? So
right.
It's like
right.
Sense memory, right? If you have triggers, physiological triggers to certain scenarios, a fight or flight instinct is grounded in your memory. I mean, there's a lot of neuroscience that goes into what is a personality. It's just kind of like memory. And you look at people who have Alzheimer's or dementia, and they kind of lose their senses of self a little bit because they don't have their memory to inform their emotional reactions to scenarios and even their physical reactions.
And it also sounds like they're saying stick to the one body and mind and let that become your entire identity.
Versus
so going
shapeshifting a bunch of different humans.
And
Yeah.
what a
Yeah.
thing to ask a Skrull. It almost feels like the Americans. You have to let go of your previous identity. The Americans, the FX show, the Americans.
Oh, okay,
You have to
gotcha.
let go of your native identity
Yeah.
and adopt this other identity that feels foreign to you. And that's what these Skrull warriors have to do. They have to stay in human form and stay
All
in.
colonization.
Right, exactly. They have to stay in the skin of the people they're trying to conquer, and that's got to do something to them, right? Like that's a limitation. You feel gross in the skin that you're in.
Well, I think that's why we're seeing more and more. It's like when they're able to sort of like have time to themselves, they do revert to their original form. They do revert to their original language, you know, to kind of keep them unified as a Skrull.
Their
because
identity.
you're right. Yeah.
Let's move forward. So later, Fury, Hill, and Talos identify a group of Skrulls who may build a bomb, thanks to Fury's camera at Sonya's, and they set off to meet him. Pagon sends Gaia to purchase the bomb. She beats the team there, and she makes a purchase, and spotted by Hill, leaves with the package. Interrogation of the bomb maker goes south. He reveals himself to be a Skrull, and Fury kills him. Much to Talos' disappointment and his sadness. He doesn't want to see Skrulls die. He's still kind of an optimist.
I also think, you know, hearing from another Skrull, you know, you're betraying us. I think that's super
It's hurtful.
conflicting.
Yeah.
And I also thought there was a bit of a middle-aged, like, crisis moment here, where Fury was like, "I'll help you," and Talos is like, "I don't need help. I'm younger and more fit than you."
Yeah, I'm not even 40 in
Right.
You
your
know?
years.
Yeah, right. So I feel like, oh, maybe that was a little bit of a Talos being mad that he kind of failed being able to resolve that without getting to help, the intervention, having to kill the Skrull, certainly, but it's also like a failure on Talos's physical capabilities and like how he's able to handle the situation.
Yeah. So he faces a second wave of disappointment after joining Hill in pursuit of Gaia. Attempting to reason with her, he informs her that her mother passed away, Mother Soren. It's an important detail that Soren died. We're going to talk more about that later.
Yeah.
But he pauses, but ultimately, or she pauses, but ultimately pushes him away, taking the bomb with her. Fury and Hill meet at an old bar. And again, he is told that he's not ready for this fight.
This is really getting pushed on us at this point.
Yeah.
Like he is hearing it from Talos. He's hearing it from Sonya. He's hearing it from Maria time and time again. Like he's hearing it from Rhodey. He's just like, that is the number one message. You ain't what you used to be, my man.
Yeah. This is very old man Logan. Everything these days is old man Logan.
I mean, it's unfair. Samuel L. Jackson's been old the entire time he's been in the MCU.
That's true.
The guy's
That's true.
ancient. He's
That's
always been
true.
old.
Again,
And he's
what
always
did he,
kicked
what,
ass.
what did he get for his midlife crisis? The Avengers. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
That's what Nick Fury did. Yeah.
So Hill's comment seems to cut deep as it triggers a flashback of when he was blipped. So after delivering the bomb, Gaia calls a secret meeting with Talos to inform him of Gravik's plan, we think. She says there's going to be 3 bombs, 3 couriers in a square for a celebration of Unity Day, and she tells them each bag would be marked with infrared spray. The next day, Talos, Hill, and Fury, donning some infrared detecting glasses, go to the square. In a tense chase, we watch as the 3 split up. It's a shell game. I love this kind of scene. Who's got the bomb? They try to follow the marked bags in chaos of the celebration, and we land on Fury. He sees an individual who takes the forms of peoples we have seen him encounter throughout the episode. The little girl from the Men in Black trial with the weird little ball. Why is that girl playing with a ball in the street in Russia? After Fury was just warned, you can't. You're gonna at least stick out walking around at night in Moscow. We see the woman on a date. We see a man from the bar. All these people. It's kind of like that moment at the end of Loki episode 2 where Sylvie transforms into different forms or takes the body of different forms.
But this is a threat saying we're following you.
Right, we've just been toying with you this whole episode. I love this moment. The Skrull leads them closer and closer to the center of the square as Talos and Hill close in. The figure reveals themselves to be Gravik, and Hill and Talos grab the bags. They find out that they're empty. Gravik hits the button, triggering 3 explosions. The square sent into panic. It's a gruesome massacre. We have to imagine hundreds, if not a couple thousands. That's huge. I mean, wars have been started over less, folks. Our trio try to reunite, Hill being called over by Fury, who shoots her. And a second Fury, the real Fury, runs up. As Hill's killer turns out to be Gravik in disguise, Fury grabs Hill, who dies in his arms, and whispers, "It was you."
And I liked the different takes that we had on that. Was it was you shot me, and she doesn't ever know that it wasn't him? Or is it the warning, it was you've got to find someone because they're using your fake?
Yeah.
It's such a chilling final words, right? Like, and you know how Fury hears it. He doesn't hear it as a warning. He feels the blood on his hands now for letting her die. And that's where we end things, like just panning up and up and up. And then because we knew that Soren is dead, there are no outs here. Maria Hill, Kobe Smulders is gone.
Yeah.
And I think I love as well that we are seeing this be very, very contained. And because this is political, this is America versus Russia, we are seeing this as a classified venture.
Yep.
So it's like, it's only who needs to know. Nick Fury has been running this campaign for decades. So he's kind of like the one calling the shots. I think he's making promises he actually can't keep.
Agreed.
And that's a really dangerous thing because all the Skrulls are doing is holding him accountable. A promise that he's made.
Yeah.
So I kind of like the fact that when you are picking off these people who are in and can be the ones that help, and when you have like the team's getting smaller and smaller, chaos is going to erupt because, the solution's disappearing.
I mean, it's a perfect challenge for the MCU version of Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Because the one thing he's been able to do is detect when people are bullshitting him, to be a step ahead, multiple moves ahead. Three steps ahead, which aren't that many steps. Chess masters can stay like
He's
12
tall.
steps ahead. He is tall.
He had long steps.
You would think that he could see like a combination of chess moves that would get to a checkmate in 8 moves, maybe. But 3's not that many. Because, if you're 3 moves behind, you can see the 3 moves ahead of you. Anyway, I just thought, like, more moves, please. But let's ask the question. If this first episode ends with the promise of a major MCU character dying, I feel like that sets up a promise that other characters are going to die. We already have the highest body count, I think, of any single MCU title. Because, like, we learned in Civil War that, like, the Battle of New York it had a pretty small death count. I might be wrong in the numbers here, but in a Disney Plus title for sure. So let's go through some options of who do we think will die in this show.
Technically in the show, what if entire realities were wiped out?
That's true.
So that's Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
what
but
if?
they're animated realities.
Yeah, they don't really count. They're animated.
But you're right. So do we think this show is going to end with Nick Fury dying?
Okay, likely no.
Yes.
Only because
Samuel L. Jackson loves a paycheck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's in the Marvels, but I feel like the Marvels is not going to be a show that takes place before this show. I think it's going to be post.
Okay.
And I think at one point Sam Jackson said something like the show Secret Invasion is going to explain why Nick Fury is where he is in the Marvels, up on the Saber Station or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like he said something like Secret Invasion has to happen before we get to the Marvel. Like it's like a one before the other. But it would be wild if they killed off Nick Fury and then like a Skrull takes his place. It's like Mendo or something, and then he's like, well, now I'm just Nick Fury.
That's kind of already happened.
Yeah, exactly. So but I'm gonna say likelihood of Nick Fury dying is gonna be like 5% out of 100. Like it's very, very.
I'll set it at 15%.
Okay, probably
10
more fair
for me, and I'm only saying 10 because Nick Fury has been the connective tissue since day one.
Yes,
he was
truly
in the original Iron Man in 2008. So this is the guy that we call upon to usher in the new people because we are in phase 5, isn't it? We're phase 5 now.
This is phase 5, yeah.
And so it's like we are seeing the original Avengers already sort of say goodbye. So Nick is the mentor. He is the father figure. He's the one that sort of like has to be steps ahead, but he's the one that has all the information.
Yeah.
And I think that he's such an important character. He doesn't need to be there all the time.
Yeah.
But I think that his presence is necessary, especially the more
Always
we go
felt.
through with new characters, with younger characters.
Yeah. Let's talk about Talos.
Okay.
I put Talos' death odds at 90%.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, really?
100% at
100%
90%.
at 90%.
Why? What do you guys think so?
Because I think
Mendo.
someone has to die. Someone bigger has to die, at least to the stakes of this show.
Wow.
And
I've got it. So what's stopping Talos from impersonating Gravik? If Gravik becomes more of a crucial role.
Then like Skrulls can
And it's like you have to
Double
maintain
agent.
the face. And so what if he is able to sort of infiltrate and become Gravik, and then they think that they're killing the enemy, but they're actually killing the ally. Why not? Yeah,
They think they're killing
Gravik,
but they're actually killing
It's
Mendo.
Talos
It'll be that kind of a
as-
twist.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
What about if I think that Talos' daughter in this show is a very interesting character. Gaia, very interesting. I love Emilia Clarke. I'm so happy that she's a part of this show as well. Talking about a stacked cast, she's a great actor. I wonder if by the end of this series, Talos will die, but Gaia will switch alliances and realize her mom and dad were right to side with Nick Fury, to be on the side of these good guy characters, and maybe she will become almost like a new Talos and become an ally to either Nick Fury going forward or Saber or more Avengers characters or so on. Because I also have to imagine you're not going to cast Emilia Clarke and be like, but you're only in this show. She's also a get. Like you could, right?
Well, if we're in the spy thriller genre, I think Guy is going to be our alias, our Sydney Bristow. I think she's going to double agent it up. I think that, you know, we're going to learn more about sort of where her allegiances lie, and we're going to think that she's going to be working for Gravik the entire time, but I think she's going to use that intel to stop him once.
You know, when she was first announced as being a part of the cast, my comic book brain went, "Ooh, I think she's going to be playing Spider-Woman." Who is a Marvel Comics character who's who's a very important Skrull / not Skrull character in the Marvel Comics. I know Spider-Woman is a Skrull sometimes. And I thought, ooh, and then Emilia Clarke could play the Skrull version, but then when the Skrull version gets killed, she still stays on as Spider-Woman, like the real human version of the character.
The Jessica Drews, but not the animated.
Right.
Yeah.
But what's very interesting about what you said, Maude, is that for me, the Spider-Woman character in Marvel Comics is a double triple agent. She's worked for Hydra. She's worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. She's worked so it's this great potential character to be able to swap alliances whenever the story needs it. And I feel like Emilia Clarke could do something like that. So you might be. Yeah.
I think they're setting her up to play the Abigail Brand figure. I think she might be set up to take over Saber and Sword. You got to imagine that Emilia Clarke signs on to it. She's probably going to be a redemptive character. She starts in this place of betrayal to her father. I think by the end of these 6 episodes, she's going to come to the fold and be able to broker a peace between the Skrulls and humans.
This is such a twisty-turny show that I thought that when they introduced her and she was with Gravik, I went... And when we realized that she was Talos' daughter, I thought, oh, maybe she's just working with Gravik, but she's actually secretly working for her dad the whole time. But then that scene happened where the dad confronted her, and Talos had to tell her, your mom died. And I'm like, that scene was just with those 2 characters. She really did not know. She really has separated from her dad and her mom, and really has her own
But when you see
beliefs.
how... she's left out of the big meetings. She's like, you know, she's not a part of sort of what's going on. And she integrates new members as if she's like doing a good service. She's like, welcome to
Yeah, she believes in the cause. She believes in the cause. So I think that, you know, like so many great, complex, antagonistic characters, they may have a cause you agree with, but maybe she'll realize, hey, these methods are too much. Same sort of thing happened in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier with the Morgenthau, Carly Morgenthau character, the Flag Smasher. Same sort of thing happens with fans and Killmonger. We all love Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger, even if we were like, too far, you went too far, but we agree with your...
You got left out.
Yeah, yes. So maybe a redemptive character, it might be.
But I mean, if Guy is her Skrull name, could she then could her human form be Abigail?
That's what I like. She could take on the name of Abigail Brand.
Abigail.
Okay.
Or they could when they announced Olivia Colman, I was like, oh, Olivia Colman could be the Abigail Brand of this world. Or they could just introduce another actor to be Abigail Brand. I think the MCU needs an Abigail Brand. I mean, Nick Fury seems to be playing that role in the Marvels, but I think it'd be a great opportunity to introduce someone else to take on that leadership. One thing, some of us off screen, some of the producers and us were talking yesterday. That it might be good to introduce this Skrull, like these terroristic cells, country by country. Why not just introduce the Flag Smashers as one of those Skrull? Like you could retcon the Flag Smashers as being. John, was that you who I was talking to? Might have been off-screen producer Brandon who was talking.
Well, people throw in Flag Smashers that don't understand the concept of a Flag Smasher.
I think all of us are still unsure exactly what they were trying to do, but this was the group in the Falcon and the Winter Soldiers who had the red handprint masks.
You can also go back further and be like, Wenwu and the 10 Rings. What if there's a few 10 Rings cells that are also Skrulls? You could do whatever you could say Hydra people were Skrulls. You could say and
it's actually really interesting when they do set up sort of you know, an initial story and then they retell it by looking back and go, actually, this is what really happened.
Retcon, baby.
Yes.
Retroactive continuity. I'm all about it.
Getting back to the question of who do we think will die, I think President Ritson is going to go. Only just because we've already announced Harrison Ford is going to play the U.S. president in Captain America Brave New World. We don't know where Harrison Ford is in the MCU right now. We have to imagine he must be vice president or somewhere in the order of succession.
Vice President Ross.
Depends how long Brave New World takes place after Secret Invasion, but it seems like by showing us the White House, correct me if I'm wrong, is this the first time we've been inside the White House in the MCU? I know Iron Man 3.
Robert Redford.
Redford was in the State Department,
and he mentioned I think knowing the president or something.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if he was in the White House. Also, I'm going back all the way to 2003. I'm like X2, X-Men United.
Right.
Nightcrawler was in the White House, but that's not the MCU. That was Alan Cummings' Nightcrawler, almost killing the president.
We had President Matthew Ellis in Iron Man 3, which is a reference, to Warren Ellis. But
fun fact about Iron Man 3, that was Wednesday Addams. She was a little girl in that movie.
Oh, Jenna Ortega.
Jenna Ortega played the little girl who was in a wheelchair in that film.
Oh, cool.
She was a little kid. Yeah, that was 2013. We're old. All of us are old.
I feel old. Yeah, I do think I loved the shot of going up the stairs and you see past U.S. presidents, but they stop at Reagan because at that point you start getting into modern political history.
But also,
and
listen,
we need to have a different timeline.
Seeing Nixon and then Reagan made me go like, I don't trust this President Ritson.
That's
I don't
the
know
idea.
what's happening here. I don't like these presidents.
I think the idea
I don't like this guy.
is that since like the 70s, because we know the Skrulls, even though they didn't come onto the planet Earth until 1995, those refugees were in orbit since the late 80s because that's when Annette Bening's character became acquainted with them. So like at that point, any of those U.S. presidents could have been infiltrated. Like the fact that we stop on Reagan.
But this is getting into a sort of like what if territory in a way, because it's like I think they are trying to contain it as much as possible, and by going, well, it could have even been. I don't even
You know
know
what's funny?
Like,
when the Secret Invasion comic book was coming out, they did a bunch of like variant covers of like different Marvel characters that had like the Skrull chin to be like, who do you trust, whatever. And I think they did a variant cover because it was around 2008 where President Barack Obama was a Skrull. Like I think they did a Skrull
Obama and McCain. I think it was during the campaign that summer. It was summer 2008. And
what if in the MCU Barack Obama was actually a Skrull the whole time?
Yeah.
what if I am?
I'd still be your friend. Are you a good Skrull or a bad Skrull?
Yeah.
Do you like Gravik or do you like Talos?
I mean,
Mendo. See, you're good. You're a good Skrull.
oh yeah,
You're
my
Australian.
accent. Give me away. Tell us, my man.
Not British, thank God. It's Australian. Good.
Well, Hector, we wanted to turn to you because you brought some show and tell that you wanted to recommend to anyone who likes Secret Invasion.
Really quick segment here. We're going to call it, For the Love of Christ, Read a Comic Book. This is Secret Invasion. And the first recommendation this week, this is the bigger picture. I just want to say, if you have not read the original 2008 Secret Invasion miniseries, highly recommend because it's very different than the show, but this storyline is sort of like a big blockbuster movie version of this story. It's almost like the end game. It's almost like, what are Skrulls in this for? What are they trying to accomplish? And you read this and it's the big, bombastic, every character's involved, but it's a very big public version of this war. And so many of the other tie-ins for these comic books that were happening in other comic book series with other characters, they're more low-key. They're more like showing Nick Fury in that stealth mission mode, like realizing who's a Skrull, who isn't, that sort of thing that I think is closer in tone to the show. But I want to recommend this first for this first week because it gives that great overall bigger picture look. And there's some great moments, including my absolute favorite, where Skrulls that are invading Earth, they're saying, they have a different motivation in the comic books. We know what the motivation is in the MCU, is that Skrullos is not their home world, I guess, and they've been refugees. In the comic books, their motivation is there is a fringe religious extremist group of Skrulls who, according to their religious texts, are prophesized to inherit the Earth. It was always going to be theirs according to their religion.
There's some new home that was in their prophecy, and then they believe it's Earth now.
They're taking what's theirs, but in the name of their God. And at one point, a Skrull character says to Nick Fury in this, like, our God loves you. Our God loves you. And Nick Fury replies with, yeah, well, my God has a hammer. And then Thor arrives, and it's awesome.
A great moment.
And that's a great line.
I have to say, I would love if the show at least references their religion, because that is like my favorite thing about the Skrulls.
It's very interesting.
Is that they have this religious ideology, because nothing is more of a motivator to go to war and to go on a crusade in an invasive force than religion. And if they don't have their religion in the show, I'm going to be a little bummed.
And actually, the fact that they are building this community and we're seeing that there's disruption within this community, but I really like that idea where it's like, no, we're bonded together because it's bigger than us.
Right.
Yeah.
It's for our kids and our
Absolutely.
kids.
So check out the Secret Invasion, and I think each week that we talk about shows, I'm going to try to do like a different comic book recommendation based on what we maybe learned from the show or whatever. So check this out if you haven't read it. Pretty good.
How public are Skrulls in that? Is it a human level knowledge or is it still classified?
It is. That's a great question. I think that in the Marvel Comics universe, it's human level knowledge because characters like the Fantastic Four publicly dealt with the Skrulls almost in the very beginning of these sort of Marvel superhero stories. But this is the storyline where they become the most public. Right. Everything kind of up to this point, you could read Marvel Comics and go, do the people of Earth, are they aware of all the shit that's going on? And usually, no. Usually the people of Earth chalk things up to like, it's a conspiracy theory or, oh, it was a weird electrical storm that was happening. Like, they don't know things that are Galactus or that are, whatever. But this storyline, they're very public. In fact, Skrulls take the shape of celebrities. to get on TV. Characters, even like celebrities like Stephen Colbert, who makes a cameo in this.
does, yeah.
And he's just like, we love you. Like, as a Skrull, they're like, we love you. You can trust us. God loves you. Let us
You can trust us. I'm wearing someone else's body right
Oprah
now.
Winfrey, Stephen Colbert, they all make cameo appearances in this. So very, very public.
Everyone be sure to read this. It's it's required reading and viewing. Just stare at it. Okay, next question we want to ask coming out of this episode. How did Soren die?
By the hands of the enemy.
It's possible because the last time we saw Soren, this is also important to know, was when her and her husband were in the car and they were impersonating Nick Fury and Maria Hill at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, in the MCU, Avengers Endgame happens in October or fall of 2023. This is actually the year that everybody comes back, which is kind of weird. Right? It feels very weird to the global pandemic, but it's weird. So then the following year, into and by the end of Peter Parker's school year, which I think is like June of the next year, 2024, that's when Spider-Man Far From Home takes place with Mysterio. You know, they go to London, and then at the end of that, we learn, oh, that wasn't Nick Fury at all. He's been off-world since at least Avengers Endgame, because he comes back, and we saw at the end of Tony Stark's funeral, Nick Fury was standing there. I believe that was the Nick Fury, not Talos, right? It's like, that's probably Fury who's there in person with everybody else.
He would send a stand-in in Tony Stark's
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe even from that moment, Fury pieced out. But Soren was alive at least until the following year, 2024. And then from there to now, which I think we might be into, it said current day, present day, 2024, 2026, 2025, maybe 2026.
I think, they always stay like 3 years ahead. At least in phase 4
So
or 5.
we're 2 or 3 years post the Mysterio event. How did Soren die? We don't know yet. According to this first episode, we have no idea. So
yeah, but I think there's been some conflict. If Talos could prove that it was someone part of Gravik's group, I think he'd be more bitter and vengeful toward Gravik's group. I think he's kind of afraid of them.
Causes or something?
I don't know if it's natural. I think there was some kind of, I think there was, but I don't think it was like in cold blood. I think she might have been interfering to try to get her daughter back from the Fringe. And I think maybe Gaia didn't know that this was happening. And then once Soren got too close, they said, okay, we warned you. And then she's gone now. Do you think we'll see the death? Do you think we'll learn, or it will just be an off-screen mention?
Episode 4, I feel.
That's always the Disney Plus episode where we learn some shit.
They flash back to stuff. Okay, Everett Ross revealed as a Skrull. Now, was it just this particular Everett Ross, or has Everett Ross been a Skrull for a long time? And is the real Everett Ross still out there somewhere?
So this is the thing about having Skrulls now. We can question absolutely every story told.
Everything.
Canon is now fluid, you know? Like,
it's been fluid.
Just like gender. Just like gender.
That's it. So
Canon is a construct.
Canon's a construct.
Again, last time we saw Everett K. Ross, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, where he was dealing with his ex-wife, Val, who, by the way, I think she's a Skrull. That's what I think.
I think they're both
She's
Skrulls.
This is the thing. You have to look at the timeline.
Right, that's what I'm trying to do. So Black Panther Wakanda Forever was, I also think, the year 2025, I want to say, in the fall of 2025. And at the end of that film, because he was a fugitive from the law, Okoye rescued him from being taken somewhere. Did she take him back to Wakanda? Did he live there? Did she just free him and now he's like off the grid? And then if so, did he get replaced as a Skrull from that point to now? Or was he a Skrull during that movie and earlier? I think something else more recent happened because the rules of this world establish that when they assume someone's identity, they put them in this fracking pod. Yeah. So that's my worry, is that somewhere Martin Freeman is in a fracking pod in this comatose state, because that's the only way they can guarantee that there won't be 2 Everett Rosses running around. Correct. So I think and the comic books had an excuse for keeping characters alive. While a Skrull was impersonating them. Like, they had some, we need them because we need to be able to go to their DNA or whatever. Like, they had, an actual reason for it. I wonder if the show's going to do it. And here's the other thing I think is going to happen. By the end of this one season, I think that we're going to get the real Everett Ross. Maybe will be, freed from a pod. They're going to pan over, and you know who's going to be in another pod? Val. So that the audience knows, she's been a Skrull. The Val active right now, she's a Skrull. So either the Val that we know is going to be in the Thunderbolts movie is going to be a Skrull, or that will be the real Val at that point, the Contessa Valentina de Fontaine. But she'll have to take back her identity from this point to that point.
My hope is that they're both Skrulls and they don't know that the other's a Skrull. And that's why they've had marital issues.
Opposing sides?
They're on the same side. They're just like,
No.
there's like millions potentially Skrulls that are just walking around on Earth right now. Is there a way that a Skrull can detect another Skrull? No, they're perfectly matching DNA. So I think they're both Skrulls and they just didn't know. It's like the Rupert Holmes song. They were pina coladas getting caught in the rain and then they found their way back to each other, but they didn't realize that they're both Skrulls. But they just sense that there's some kind of deceit going on, and that's why their marriage fell apart.
So hold on.
That's my headcanon, and it's fluid, and it's real.
It's like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They don't know that they're spies.
That's right.
Kind of cute.
That's a better reference point.
But now we're really kind of looking at everyone's being monitored. The Skrulls are overtaking people in key positions so that they can manipulate chains of events. So anyone who's in a position of power is likely a target for a Skrull. And now this is also going to be an overarching theme here. Anyone who is a Skrull, whose body has been taken against their will so a Skrull can consume their identity, is holding somewhere. Likely in this refugee camp. There is just pods and pods and pods of people to be rescued.
Which is scary because these are radioactive sites that still have decay happening. You're bringing in human bodies that are not resistant to radiation.
Yeah, maybe they'll shield them knowing we need to keep our little cargo precious.
The fracking pods are lined with lead and with concrete. Those are dangerous sites for humans to just be in for months and months and months.
True.
But I do like the detail that like Skrulls can resist it because their molecules are constantly shifting. They can just naturally adapt to it. Yeah, that's right.
It's adapting to the Earth's soil.
What do we think Nick Fury is doing on Saber right now?
Great question.
I think it's interesting that he left after Tony Stark's funeral because that traumatized him so much. He's like, I can't be on Earth right now. He feels like he let Tony Stark down. He's like, I recruited this guy into the Avengers. Now he's dead. I need to just get off this planet.
I mean, I think that there's maybe more to that, but he was just using that whole thing as an excuse. Listen, the dude got dusted, and he was barely able to send off a beeper page to Carol Danvers after 30 years, and she showed up from 1995, finally back to Earth. But like, what is he doing on Saber? I think he might be doing what Tony Stark tried to do in Avengers: Age of Ultron, which is put a shield around the Earth.
A suit of iron.
A suit of armor.
Suit of armor.
Because Iron Man was so traumatized by the Avengers movie, dealing with the Chitauri invading and seeing that portal and and freaking out, and he had that post-traumatic stress that we saw in Iron Man 3. So I think that his motivations in Avengers: Age of Ultron made sense, but then like he and Bruce Banner did it the wrong way, and they created Ultron, James Spader, bad. I think Fury's going to try to do that same thing, but like in a better way.
It has to be crucial because he's such an important key figure. So for him to be gone for so long, it needs to be something bigger than Earth, or like to protect the entire entity of Earth. But I think at the moment it's been used as this sort of like ostracized punishment, or like where he's like in his Batcave dwelling or whatever it is. So like they're not going to unveil the importance of it. I think it's being downplayed a lot, where it's like, wow, you've just changed a lot and you're a bit of a soupy lala.
Right, but we don't know what he was actually doing. Like,
and I think that it is something incredibly crucial, and that will be an info drop later.
And it might come into play in the Marvels, because it looks like that movie is not just dealing with Kamala Khan, Monica Rambeau, Carol Danvers, but like other Kree, like a bunch of other space stuff. And
we're going above Earth again.
We're going above Earth again. And in Marvel Comics, the Kree-Skrull war is such a huge pivotal thing for so many characters, and it's so important to so many characters, that the MCU really hasn't full-on gone into that. They might do their version of the Kree-Skrull war, or us finally kind of seeing, because again, the first Captain Marvel movie was mostly just set on Earth. It was about Carol kind of remembering who she was and dealing with Jude Law and a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of Kree, but at the end of the day, they
were like 5 strong.
That's it. It was Lee Pace just being like, I'll come back later. Like we saw him in Guardians, and that's it. But
I think I'm glad you brought up the Kree-Skrull War. I think that's why Fury built the Saber space station, and he's on it. I think he's fighting that shadow war. In Spider-Man: Far From Home, there was that line with him and Maria Hill, it was Talos and Soren, talking about Kree sleeper cells. There has been a shadow war happening right now.
Right.
Fury is fighting the Kree, and that is a battle station. I think the reason why he has not found a new home for the Skrull is because he knows that the next time the Skrull try to find a new home planet, the Kree are going to massacre them. So he has to deal with the imperialist threat of the Kree right now, and he's building battle stations like Saber, and it's called Saber, right? It's not called Shield. It's an aggressive front. And so I think there are other space stations he's trying to build around the galaxy to combat the threat of the Kree.
So this is actually so much more than a promise he can't keep.
Right. I
Yeah.
think he's trying to fulfill his promise the best he can.
But it's above him. It's
a lot bigger
Again,
than him.
in the comic books, the Kree and the Skrulls have been fighting since like the dawn of time. Like it's gonna take more than like some diplomacy, a human guy being like, hey, wait, let's meet at the table and let's
get one dude.
Right. The Kree and the Skrull hate each other, and it's a thousands of years old conflict. How is this going to be observed, resolved? How's it going to play into the Marvel Cinematic Universe? You know, it might be a great way to introduce a character that is a young Avenger who we haven't met yet. Teddy Altman, aka Hulkling.
That's right, half
is
Skrull.
half Krull, half Skree. You see, it's a very Romeo and Juliet story.
Wait,
Skrull,
half
Kree.
Skrull, half Kree.
What did I say?
Krull, Skree.
That's what I meant. I mean,
It's
think
the
about
mixes,
it.
it's chocolate and the
Yeah,
peanut
yeah,
butter.
It's Romeo and Juliet. It was like a Skrull princess, I think, and a Kree warrior. Like fell in love, even though they were fated to hate each other, and then they made this child who they knew would almost be the uniter. And then
That's all they need.
they hid Teddy away on Earth.
Love conquers all.
So maybe Secret Invasion, if this show doesn't introduce that character, and he eventually becomes a young Avenger, and he becomes friends with all the other young Avenger characters like Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, and Cassie Lang,
That's
so
going
on
down
and so
Chosen
forth.
One territory then.
It is,
That's a trope.
but
yeah.
but I think we might meet that character in the Marvels.
Yeah.
We might, I don't know. It's really interesting to see what the MCU is going to do with that whole thing. But that's what I think. I think you guys are right about this. That's what Saber has been for, and we're going to learn more about what Fury has actually been doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like when the United States and the UN decided to create or recreate the nation of Israel. Oh God, what am I doing? You need to be an aggressive imperialist presence around the Earth to be able to defend and properly fortify that country from all the people who are trying to destroy it. And I think you can't just say, "Hey, the Skrull, here's your new home world. Fine, you're on your own now." You have to carry a big stick and be the policeman of the galaxy at that point. You have to be the new Nova Corps. I think that's what Fury's trying to do.
We haven't seen them in a minute either. They were devastated by Ronan, the Accuser, in 2014 in Guardians of the Galaxy.
All right, we're going to leave it there for this episode of Inside Marvel. We have 6 episodes this season. We're so excited to talk about. And next week, we're going to be talking about episode 2. We're very, very excited for that. Reminder to subscribe to the Deep Dive channel. Subscribe here to the Break Room. Subscribe to the new Rockstars main channel. That's where the Easter egg breakdown is coming out. You can follow me at Erik Voss. Follow Maude at Maude Garrett. Follow Hector at Hector is Funny. Subscribe to Inside Marvel wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to support us by grabbing some merch at nerdriot.shop. And we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.